Okay, so NTI's protests in Portland, Oregon have turned into a nightly battlefield. So demonstrators rolled out a guillotine, clashed violently with police, and surrounded the federal migrant detention center. So what began as a protest months ago has now stretched into nearly 3 months of relentless chaos. Yet local police and city leaders appear absent, leaving residents to fend for themselves while the unrest only grows worse. For those living near the ICE facility, the protests aren't just political theater. They're a daily nightmare. Apartments just feed from the facility, shake from noise, flashbangs, and chanting crowds. Residents repeatedly call for help, but their pleas fall on deaf ears. Reports surface of two women cornered by protesters with no officers responding. The sense of abandonment has become so complete that many feel that their city has already been surrendered to the mob. On nights when federal officers steps in, they deploy tear gas and flash grenades, while Portland police remain invisible. Court records reveal that no arrests have been made by local officers in months, despite crimes committed on a regular basis. The reasoning, officers worry their presence might provoke the protesters further. In effect, the city has handed over control of its streets to the very group causing destruction. The protesters, many identifying with Antifa, insist the violence is overstated by the media. They argue they are simply resisting what they call authoritarian threats from the federal government, yet their actions tell a different story. Businesses shuttering permanently, schools forced to relocate, and low-income residents left to endure nightly chaos. Portland's leadership, meanwhile, continues to defend the protests as expressions of free speech. Critics argue Portland's progressive policies paved the way for this collapse by refusing cooperation with ICE, declaring sanctuary status, and minimizing accountability for lawbreakers. City leaders have cultivated an environment where lawlessness thrives. The ICE facility became a symbolic battleground, but the consequences have spread citywide. Homeless encampments growing, violent crimes spilling into surrounding neighborhoods, and investment in Portland drying up at record speed. The economic fallout is staggering. Portland is now ranked the second worst city in America to invest in, with over 6 million square feet of commercial vacancy. Office towers that once bustled with workers have lost more than half their value in 5 years. Businesses are fleeing, jobs are disappearing, and those who can afford to leave are abandoning the city. For the residents left behind, there is little hope of recovery while mob rule reigns. The protesters themselves raise troubling questions. How can individuals sustain nightly demonstrations for months on end? Critics point to America's welfare system, arguing benefits allow people to fund lives of perpetual protests. Others suspect outside agitators, noting that activists have been traveling from California and Washington to join the Portland unrest. Regardless of origin, the constant influx of demonstrators only fuels the fire. The city leaders remain steadfast in refusing federal assistance. Portland's mayor openly rejected federal intervention, describing the federal enforcement as heavy-handed tactics that contradicts the city's outreach-based approach. But this political stance leaves residents trapped in an environment where rioters dictate the rule and law enforcement dares not intervene. In essence, voters have empowered leadership that prioritizes appeasing mobs over restoring order. As Portland crumbles, the impact ripples beyond city limits. Sanctuary policies and unchecked lawlessness create safe havens for fugitives, gangs, and organized crimes. Crime doesn't stay contained. It's spread outwards. Homeless encampments and criminal activity have already begun appearing outside the city, threatening surrounding communities, allowing one city to become a lawless no-go zone, risk infecting the nation with the same instability. In the end, Portland illustrates what happens when ideology trumps order. Residents suffer, businesses vanish, and public safety evaporates. Federal officials warn that unless action is taken, the unrest will continue spreading. But city leaders, tied to their political base, refuse to act. Portland may already be lost, critics argue, but the greater danger is what happens if other cities follow its example. What began as a protest against immigration enforcement has spiraled into a warning of how quickly a city can unravel when law and order are abandoned.